सेव किया था ना?
मैं सिर्फ इसलिए गया था क्योंकि उसने मुझे कॉल किया, that's it. But listen तो.
Save it for someone else.
जिंदगी में सेव करना जरूरी है, मगर जब बात पैसों की हो, सिर्फ सेविंग से काम नहीं चलेगा। इक्विटी म्यूचुअल फंड्स में इन्वेस्ट कीजिए और अपने सेविंग्स को आगे बढ़ने का मौका दीजिए।
Mutual fund investments are subject to market risks. Read all scheme-related documents carefully.
Bangladesh is heading for fresh elections. Elections take place every 5 years. So this is the third in a series for Sheikh Hasina. In 2009, she came to power, and since then she's held power. Except there is a twist there. The last two elections where she's won back power, those elections she fought almost by herself. For her party, Awami League, fought almost by herself. How is that possible? That's because the main opposition party, BNP, Khaleda Zia's party, which was in power earlier, Khaleda Zia's party has been in power twice, 1991 to 1996. 1991 is when martial law was lifted. Fresh elections took place. She won power for 5 years. And then 2001 to 2006. After that, for 2 years, there was some kind of an interim administration under the control or under the watch of the army. And then in the fresh election, Sheikh Hasina came to power. Now, these two elections where Sheikh Hasina won back power, retained power, the first election, BNP boycotted on many grounds, but basically saying that you are taking action against our people, you are arresting them, you will not hold free and fair elections. So they boycotted. The next time, in the next election, they sort of participated. That's one of those very Bangladesh things, because they participated, but they participated sort of in conjunction with the ruling party, and they won all of 7 seats. The first election, where they did not participate at all, the Awami League won a super majority. The incumbent won a super majority. In fact, 153 of its MPs got elected unopposed. Now, that is something that BNP is complaining about now. They are saying that Awami League is once again going to rig elections. It's not going to hold free and fair elections. Now, those things usually happen before elections in our countries, and we've seen this play out in Pakistan very often. Bangladesh, on the other hand, over the years has been a better governed country, and in some ways, its democracy has worked better in the sense that the army has not been involved in politics now for quite some time. In fact, ever since Sheikh Hasina came to power, the army has not been actively involved in power. It's not a hybrid system like, say, in Pakistan. Also in the process, Bangladesh has economically done much better. Bangladesh has also kept Islamist forces in control and followed many sort of modern policies, even if I may not call them secular policies, still fairly quite modern policies. It also has a lot of social freedoms there, not for everybody, not all over the rural Bangladesh, but a lot of that is available to Bangladesh's urban elites. That said, what is the issue right now and what is the new factor that's come up? We have featured Bangladesh several times in Cut The Clutter. In fact, I'll be sharing all the links with you. I think it's about 6 of them. We had one when the Islamists held rallies in protest on Narendra Modi's visit there. We had one much earlier when General Ershad passed away, and many others. So I will share links with you. You can see those. Right now, the important thing is, as the country is heading for elections, BNP, Khaleda Zia are once again saying this will not be a fair election, and because it will not be a fair election, will not participate. Because she thinks that if she again says she will not participate, then the elections will have no credibility. She, however, at the same time, has been put under house arrest. She's been under house arrest for some time. She's been wanting to go overseas for medical treatment. Bangladesh government, Sheikh Hasina's government, is not even giving her permission to go overseas for treatment. In fact, in one of her speeches, she tauntingly said, you know, what is her problem? Basically, she has a liver problem. And you know what the hint is? Why do people have a liver problem? So that is the level at which politics is right now. So Khaleda Zia is under house arrest, not in jail, under house arrest. Many of her party workers have cases. In fact, I've seen stories from Bangladesh press, some in international press also, that if BNP, Bangladesh National Party, that is Khaleda Zia's party, founded by her late husband, General Ziaur Rahman, and I will mention a bit about that as we go along. That party that has 50 lakh, half a crore, 50 lakh registered members today, about 25 lakh would have some case or the other against them, if nothing else, rioting, breaking of prohibitory orders, something like that, and against senior leaders of the party, against each one of them, hundreds of cases are registered. In this situation, an unexpected player has stepped in, and that unexpected player is United States of America. Now, after a very long time, the US has become a player, or at least is seen to have become a player in domestic politics of a country in the Indian subcontinent. You know, you will rarely hear me say South Asia, because I think South Asia is a very convenient US State Department and think tank community construct. I don't buy that construct, because if this is South Asia, then what happens to countries which happen to be south of the South Asia? So I'd rather see the subcontinent. So in the subcontinent, for a long time, the Americans had a very strong influence in what happened in Pakistan, right? And that's when that AAA kind of cliche developed. So Americans had a big role in Pakistani politics. Right now, it looks like they have not played that role in Pakistani politics, definitely not in electoral politics for quite some time. They have not been seen to endorse a candidate. They have not been seen to demand an election. They have not been seen to demand so aggressively and so proactively a fair election in Pakistan. They've left the Pakistanis to their own devices, relatively so. But in Bangladesh, they are very involved now. They are so involved that in May, they officially said this year that if they find any Bangladeshi politicians or officials are obstructing the path of free and fair elections, they will deny them visas, basically imposing visa sanctions. Also, they might seize their assets as well. For the Americans to do this in Bangladesh sounds very uncharacteristic. And truth to tell, I've been trying to wrap my head around it in terms of why are the Americans getting so involved in Bangladesh? That too, if you just look at the wisdom of this, Americans don't follow any morality when it comes to democracy. America's best friends across the world are dictators of one kind or the other. Americans, if anything, find it much more convenient, much more comfortable dealing with dictators than with elected regimes or than with democracies. And I'm not just talking of Latin America, South America. Look at all of the Middle East. All of America's allies are dictators. Leave out Netanyahu. Israel is a democracy. It has flaws right now. No democracy is perfect. Israel is more flawed right now than it's been in the past. But America generally has never had a problem dealing with dictators or dealing with leaders who get elected through flawed elections. For a long time, Americans haven't got involved in trying to ensure a fair election process in the subcontinent. Now in Bangladesh, the American hand is back. So much so that over the last week or 10 days, we've seen Peter Haas, the American ambassador in Dhaka, visit the headquarters of Awami League. I believe it's either the first time an American ambassador has visited the headquarters of Awami League in Dhaka, or maybe something might have happened 40 years ago or 50 years ago, and we'll have to search for those records, but it's very uncharacteristic. US Ambassador to Dhaka, Peter Haas, also met Qazi Habibul Awal, the Chief Election Commissioner of Bangladesh. That again looks unusual, and he said, basically, he's stressing on the need to hold free and fair election. Also, then he advised Sheikh Hasina to talk. I mean, he did not directly advise Sheikh Hasina to talk with Khaleda Zia, but he said all parties should hold conversations, should hold discussions amongst themselves to ensure a free and fair election. That got Sheikh Hasina triggered. And that's when she said, look, I have my opposition, you have your opposition. That is what she implied, not her words. I'm interpreting what she said. She said, why don't you tell President Biden to talk with Donald Trump? If he holds talks with Donald Trump, I will also hold talks with my opposition. So she got upset by that. So obviously, it is quite clear that one side in Bangladesh politics at least sees that America has taken a position that's hostile to them. That means Americans have taken a position in favor of regime change in Bangladesh. That's what the Awami League thinks. At the same time, they may or may not be right. It's very easy in the subcontinent to look at the foreign hand, to blame Americans for everything. At the same time, the American role has been more prominent than it's been in any country in the region in a very long time. Now, BNP, Khaleda Zia's party, at the same time is making no secret of the fact that they are enthused by American intervention, what they see as American intervention. So all BNP rallies, they've been mass rallies. Some of those rallies have led to riots and some violence also. 3 persons have died. One policeman, one worker of BNP, one worker of Awami League in the last few days, and BNP vice chairman. And if you want to see the enthusiasm that BNP has for the Americans, the BNP vice chairman, Shah Jahan Omar, he's been quoted and he's been seen on camera as saying Ambassador Peter D. Haas is God and he will save our party. So I don't think Americans have been called God or American ambassador has been called God by anybody in the subcontinent in the last maybe 35, 40 years. If anything, even in a country like Pakistan with such deep ties with America, the Pakistani mainstream politics, at least on the street, has had to be anti-American. And I will take you back to a story, and this is a story from Islamabad, where Benazir Bhutto in 1993 had just got elected Prime Minister, in the sense that her party had got the largest number of seats and she was going to be Prime Minister in a day. We were waiting at her home in Islamabad. There was a sudden buzz and a flurry of activity. Why? Because the US ambassador, Ambassador Monjo, was arriving. See his picture on your screens. Ambassador Monjo was arriving, and there came his big car with the US flag and security and all that. And the crowd gathered at the house let out a slogan, Bhutto ka Katil America, right? Because they had been trained to shout anti-America slogans. And Benazir Bhutto, who had by now come out to receive Ambassador Monjo, she turned to her crowd and said, ऐसे नहीं बोलते हैं, ये हमारे मेहमान हैं, उनको ऐसा बुरी बात नहीं बोलते हैं, because instinctively the street in the subcontinent is anti-American, particularly the street in Pakistan and Bangladesh. In this case, the premier opposition party of Bangladesh is seeing the US ambassador as savior. And while this tamasha has been going on, there's been one more episode. In fact, if I'm calling this a tamasha, that's a super tamasha. So a man called Mia Zahidul Islam, who's also known popularly with his alias of Arefi, Mia Zahidul Islam Arefi, he's been caught on camera at a BNP event saying that he's very friendly with President Biden. He's an American, Bangladeshi American, that he's a member of the National Committee of Democratic Party in America. On his Facebook page, apparently that is spelled with an E. That is Democratic Party in place of an A, DEMOCRETIC, which makes it a bit suspicious. And so he claimed that he's a ranking member of the Democratic Party and he's an advisor of Biden. In fact, on camera, he has also been caught boasting that every day he's so pally with President Biden that every day he exchanges 15-20 messages with him. I don't think even Netanyahu has exchanged a total of 5 messages, at least not 15-20 messages with Joe Biden on any given day. I'm not even sure he's exchanged that many text messages since October 7. But this man was caught as boasting that and saying that he's advising the Americans on how to deal with the Bangladesh government. In the same situation, another story appeared in Bangladeshi press on a Bangladeshi website that said that the Americans have given an ultimatum to Sheikh Hasina that she should resign by November 3. November 3 means this Friday. She should resign by November 3 and hand over the government to a caretaker administration which will hold a fresh election, because elections under her will not be trustworthy, because she will be suspected of having rigged those elections. Now, Americans were quick to deny that. Americans quickly said that this is not true. Bangladesh government, of course, used its power under its own equivalent of the Information Technology Act to block that story on the web. So you can't read that story on internet anymore. The US government responded to that. The US government responded to that through Deputy Assistant Secretary Afreen Akhtar, who looks after South Asia plus some other regions but not India. And she said, and I quote from the official statement, that US supports free, fair and peaceful elections in Bangladesh. Elections are not just about how these are conducted on election day, but allowing space for civil society, the media and other stakeholders to engage freely in democratic process. Now, this is a loaded statement. Even as the Americans say that they are not interested, they don't have a position on anything, this is an intervention of a certain high order. Peter Haas, the ambassador who's been described as God, as they are God by BNP's vice president, he has said, and I quote again, "We do not take sides or prefer one political party over others in Bangladesh. We want the people of Bangladesh to be able to choose their own leaders." At the same time, he's visited not just the Awami League headquarters, but also to meet the Chief Election Commissioner. Under pressure, Sheikh Hasina has now said, first of all, she's showing no intention of stepping down, and there's a little history there. Until she came to power, Bangladeshi constitution and law was that a fresh election was conducted by a caretaker government, that the incumbent resigned and left it to a caretaker government. That's the situation. That's the law in Pakistan. She amended the law in 2011 after coming to power in 2008-9. She amended the law whereby it is no longer mandatory to hand over power to a caretaker to hold elections, and she has no intention of changing that. However, under international pressure now, essentially American pressure, she has said that she is open to the idea of international observers coming into Bangladesh when the elections take place. That also is new. Why have I used expressions like tamasha and super tamasha and what's going on? Now, this gentleman, the controversial gentleman who's an American citizen, Bangladeshi American, who said that he's some sort of a ranking member of the Democratic Party, spelled with an E after R, right, on his Facebook page. Mia Zahidul Islam alias Arefi, the Bangladesh government got so angry with his statements, they immediately issued orders for him to be arrested. So he was leaving the country. He was arrested by Bangladeshi authorities from the airport, and he's been locked up since then, and the US embassy is now seeking consular access to him because he's, after all, their citizen. Sheikh Hasina's government has not just stopped at arresting Arefi, they've also arrested a retired Lieutenant General of the Army, that is retired Lieutenant General Hassan Sarwardi. What is the charge? That he organized that mischievous, quote-unquote, mischievous press conference by this Bangladeshi American who claimed to have the ear of Joe Biden and Biden administration. And around that time, rumors also spread that Americans had given an ultimatum to Sheikh Hasina to resign and hand over to a caretaker government. So what was this ultimatum allegedly threatening or purported to be threatening? That if this ultimatum is not adhered to, then the US will issue large-scale sanctions against workers, leaders of the Awami League. Now, Bangladesh politics has many complexities. There are these two ladies. The rise of each one is owed to the violent loss, to the assassination or a very near loved one. In case of Sheikh Hasina, it was her father. It was her father, her mother, her siblings, the entire family, her father's brother, his family. In fact, the entire family was wiped out. Only she and her sisters survived because they were not in Bangladesh or East Pakistan at that point. Everybody else got assassinated. That's how she inherited the mantle of Awami League. Similarly, Khaleda Zia's husband had been a dictator, Ziaur Rahman. He was largely considered to have masterminded the assassination of Sheikh Mujib on 15th of August 1975, India's Independence Day. In the year the emergency was imposed. In fact, that assassination, following the assassination of Salvador Allende in Chile to be replaced by Pinochet, who was an American-supported dictator, these were the examples that Mrs. Gandhi used at that point to justify the emergency. So he at that point was not charged, but lots of other things happened after Sheikh Mujib's assassination, which also I talked about in detail in one of the episodes, of which I'm sharing a link with you. You can check it out there. In the course of time, it came out that he was then a major general when the assassination took place, and he was he was the puppeteer from behind. So in the course of time, after another couple of series of assassinations, including one officer who took over as dictator of Bangladesh for just 5 days, with his assassination, Ziaur Rahman became the military dictator. Ultimately, he was also assassinated. And then General Irshad came. So Bangladesh had this series of violent coups, just as Pakistan has had a series of non-violent coups. In a Pakistani coup, no bullets are fired, nobody gets killed. When coup leaders come, other fellows just wind up their stuff and go away, right? Because everybody is waiting for a coup in Pakistan. In Bangladesh, coups have been violent either in their execution or in their aftermath. So he got assassinated and he had founded the party, BNP party, which his widow then inherited. So this is between them. But in their families, both parties are controlled by the families, but within their families, there are no immediate successors. In both cases, their children are either overseas or not interested in politics. Therefore, each party has a successor problem. If you look at Sheikh Hasina, her son, Sajib Wajid Joy, he lives, he's an IT type person, he's a techie, lives in America, is doing very well, is married to an American woman. In fact, given how the subcontinent's politics is, a Jewish American woman, which has its own implications, and he doesn't particularly have an inclination to come back and get into the rough and tumble of Bangladesh politics, particularly the violent rough and tumble of Bangladesh politics. It doesn't look like that. Definitely his wife has no such intention. One sister, Saima Wajid, just won the election to be the regional representative of World Health Organization. Her other sister looks like she's had some kind of a falling out with her, but nobody knows for sure. And she has a son who has shown some interest in politics. So we don't know who the likely successor is going to be. Khaleda Zia's son, Tariq Rahman, who's widely seen as the successor or likely successor, and people believe that if there's an election and she wins, he will come back. He's a convict in a serious terror case, in a grenade blast case. He has asylum in Britain and he's living there. Very unlikely if he comes back now for election campaign or something, he will be arrested on arrival and be sent to serve out his sentence, because Sheikh Hasina, after she came to power and consolidated her power, amended the law so that those charged with serious crimes could also be tried in absentia. So he will go to jail. He can only come back if Khaleda Zia wins power. It's in this situation in Bangladesh, in this mess, that the Americans have waded in, and India is watching, because India has serious reasons to be concerned. India has just lost a friendly government in Maldives because the guy who made anti-Indianism his plank has won. Nepal, we don't know who's playing with whom. The leadership of Sri Lanka plays both sides, India and China, all the time to its own benefit. And now Bangladesh, which is the most India-friendly government in India's neighborhood, if that also goes and a new government comes in, this will really complicate the neighborhood for India. That's why you've seen Prime Minister Modi being so proactive, launching these projects in partnership together with Sheikh Hasina. You've seen these railway lines, these connectivity projects. You can see that India is putting its weight behind Sheikh Hasina. The intriguing thing is, if I had the answer, I would have told you. I will try and find out over the next few days. The intriguing thing is that if America and India are partners strategically in the region, around the region, in Indo-Pacific, how come the Americans are acting so aggressively in a manner in Bangladesh, which seems to work adversely to India's interests? And by the way, you know how interested ThePrint is in geopolitics, also in our neighborhood. That's why we cover Bangladesh more extensively than any other Indian media organization does. Please look out for the byline of Deep Haldar, who's a prolific contributor. He's right now in Bangladesh. I spoke with him today before recording this episode. When he's in Delhi, I will host him on Cut The Clutter and ask him a few questions as well. But please do follow his coverage. I will also share the links of some of his writings with you.